let's get into it. So the Browns, Deshaun Watson, we all know about this quarterback battle that's going down in Cleveland. You got Dylan Gabriel, who probably, some people will argue really isn't an NFL quarterback based upon size, based upon some deficiencies that we might see in his game. You got Shador Sanders, who is, I think, the Hood's last hope, the El Capitan, word the Jeezy. But no, Shador brings about a different energy to the NFL. He's a brand all by himself. Perfect timing. Everybody's rooting for him to do well. You got Kenny Pickett, a guy that was formerly with the Pittsburgh Steelers, went to the Philadelphia Eagles, won a Super Bowl, and he's there competing for a spot. And of course, Father Time still hasn't quite caught up to Joe Flacco, but Joe Flacco held it down when the Browns needed him last year. And of course, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is owed a lot of money from the Cleveland Browns. And we just saw a video not too long ago of Deshaun Watson training, running. Now, as you know, he ruptured his Achilles. I think it was last October. He re-ruptured it or re-injured the Achilles again in January of this year. It is mid-August, and I saw him running pretty much, I would say, 75% speed. Saw him dropping back, working on some passing and some timing. So, Dub, I got to ask you, you have this situation in Cleveland where you've really literally got 5 quarterbacks, 3 of which are pretty serviceable. The other 2, big question mark beside them in terms of Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel. What do you ultimately do at quarterback? And if it's not rolling with Deshaun Watson when he's healthy, because I think by week 5 he has to be on, the full roster. He can't be on the physically unable to perform, or otherwise he's done for the rest of the season. What do you ultimately do with Deshaun Watson and these quarterbacks? How does your quarterback carousel work based on what we know today about these quarterbacks?
You have to let Deshaun Watson go after this season. His contract expires at the end of 2026. He injured his Achilles back in October, and we all know that the Achilles injury doesn't have the same magnitude that it once had. With modern technology, the recovery timeline is a lot faster. People can actually bounce back and have a lot of success. We've seen it with Kevin Durant and a host of others, right? But one thing about Deshaun Watson's injuries, when he got hurt back in October 2024, he had a setback in January 2025. And so when we look from January to now, which is August, 8-month recovery timeline, multiple surgeries, and he's already out running. He's already going through his progressions and his drops. Of course, he's not in pads or anything. He's just shorts, T-shirt. But being able to do that with that quick turnaround time is great. But let's just take inventory of what he's done so far with the Browns. I think his record for the past few seasons with the Browns is 9-16. So a below 500 record.
I will say though, it is the Browns. I mean,
yeah,
it's
I get
a tough franchise to play for. We got to give them that.
It is. I'm sorry, I misspoke. 9-10 record, 19 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Yes, it's a difficult franchise to play for, but at that time when he first came on board, the Browns were stacked. I mean, defensively they were stacked. They had some pieces on the offensive end, a decent running game, but they just couldn't put it together. Now, one of the biggest issues that the Browns had at one point in time is the coaching carousel. They would switch out coaches round and round, quarterbacks round and round. Now you've had Kevin Stefanski, however you pronounce his last name. He's been the coach for the past about 5 years, and we haven't seen anything impressive yet. So, is it the end of the road for Stefanski as well as Watson? I think so. They will have to have a winning season, but as I look at the current depth chart, in my humble opinion, just based off what I see, I got Flacco 1, I got Shador 2, and I got Dylan 3, based on what I've seen so far. So looking forward to
what about Pickett? You got Dylan Gabriel over Pickett?
Get out of there, Pickett. Get out of there, Pickett. Pickett is just an insurance policy. We've already seen what he can do. Yeah. We've already seen it. So for me, Shador is your guy, ultimately, right? But I think he still needs to sit behind Flacco for a little while just to understand the game, especially non-preseason play. But to your question about Deshaun Watson, I think you just put him on injury reserve, let him heal up, and maybe if the season, if the Browns are not in a good position near the end of the season, throw Watson out there, let him get a few games in,
Yeah.
let the potential team see his talent, and then maybe that's just an upside for you guys to get as much money as possible for him, or it's not money, but as much value as you can for him. But sorry, I was long winded, but had a lot to share on that topic.
No, I think you caught up some great points. I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it. The Browns were just a wild card team in the 2023 playoffs. They got beat pretty bad by the Houston Texans, 45-14. Joe Flacco played a somewhat bad game that game, but again, you had the pieces to work with. The Cleveland Browns defense is stacked. You got guys like Grant Delpit in the secondary. You got guys like Myles Garrett up front that are able to do thing. And then you've got a talented host of players on offense in between Jerry Jeudy and your number of different quarterbacks on the team. I think that ultimately there's two different ways they can go. One, you've already made this investment in Deshaun Watson. You gave him one of the first and I think only contracts in the NFL to that point that was fully guaranteed. So he's got fully guaranteed money. That money's not going anywhere on the books. You got a great potential young talent in Shedeur Sanders. No matter what NFL execs don't want to admit it, or who doesn't like him personally and like his dad and the antics or the fanfare rather that are around them. You got an older veteran in Joe Flacco, and then you got Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel. So I think Kenny Pickett, you signed him. Obviously, you weren't uber confident in his abilities because you went and drafted two quarterbacks, right? That makes no sense after signing Kenny Pickett. So you weren't that confident in him when you signed him. I think, to your point, Dub, Kenny Pickett could move on, no problem. You got Dylan Gabriel, who spent a third-round pick on this guy. Now, ultimately, I don't understand why you did that, knowing that you were going to take Shedeur Sanders. They'll say that they didn't know. I don't know how you don't know, and then you still do it anyway. Knowing at that point you had Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, and a Deshaun Watson that was getting healthy. And at that time, they probably knew where he was in his recovery process and his journey back to the field. So you still made the decision to do it anyway. Crazy work. I think you have an opportunity to trade Dylan Gabriel, Quinshon Judkins, another draft pick coming out of Ohio State, great young running back, has some current legal troubles. I think to this day he still hasn't signed the deal. It's not there at training camp because of those legal troubles. I think maybe you have an opportunity to trade Kenny Pickett or to trade Dylan Gabriel, release the other, get some more depth at the running back position. And then you got Flacco and the veteran. You got Shedeur as a young talent that can come up, learn from both Deshaun Watson and Flacco. I think if Deshaun Watson isn't ready to go week one, obviously you're going to probably start Joe Flacco. Okay? Deshaun Watson is ready to come off of the physically and unable to perform list come week 4 or 5, whenever that is. You start Deshaun Watson at that point when he's ready. Joe Flacco moves to the bench. And to me, at that point, Deshaun Watson is getting first team reps. Maybe, Shedeur Sanders gets one of those reps just in preparation with the ones and the twos. And then he's getting all the second team reps. Joe, you're not going to win a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. Yes, that's crazy to say because he already has a Super Bowl, but at this point in his career, it's not going to happen. The game has changed that much in just a short period of time, and he has no mobile capabilities. Shedeur Sanders showed in that first preseason game with the twos and the threes from the Browns going against the ones from the Panthers, what type of mobility he has in the pocket, how he can get out the pocket and get up the field, and how he can make all of the throws that you would want him to make in this offense. So to me, he's getting reps. He's backing Deshaun Watson up this year. Depending upon the way this season goes, whether you're a wild card team, whether you're close to making the playoffs but don't make it or don't make it at all, is what you decide on the future with Deshaun Watson. But I think this year is make or break for Deshaun Watson. He starts when he's healthy, and I'm giving Shedeur whatever reps I can. Joe Flacco is in the rear view. Shout out to Joe Flacco for what he was able to do for you guys in the playoffs, but it's over with. So that's how I would play it. Who knows? We'll see. We got a couple weeks before week one, and then a few more weeks before we get into that point in time where Deshaun Watson could be coming back. So it'll be interesting to see how the Cleveland Browns take this home. As always, we give it to you straight, give you our thoughts. We need to hear from you, though. What do you think about the Cleveland Browns? What do you think they'll do with Deshaun Watson? We need that CLS treatment. Comment, like, subscribe. We'll be back with more from it in the arena.